Capricorn, take a breath with me for a moment. If you found this message today, it's not random. Something in your life is shifting quietly, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. There is someone who can feel you pulling your energy back. They don't want you to let go, not because they suddenly understand your worth, but because you're choosing different now. You're no longer reacting, you're no longer explaining, you're deciding, and that changes everything. If you're ready to receive what's meant for you at this stage of your life, comment below. I choose what's aligned. Stay with me, because this is where the real story begins. All right, stay right here with me. I want you to imagine this is not a reading being sent out into the world. It's just you and me, late at night. The noise finally quiet. Because what I'm about to say lands differently when it's spoken to one Capricorn soul instead of many. You've reached a place that doesn't announce itself loudly. There was no explosion, no dramatic ending scene, no moment where everyone suddenly clapped and understood. It was quieter than that. It happened the moment you stopped needing a reaction, the moment you didn't rush to explain your side, the moment you realized your peace didn't require permission. That's the shift. You didn't become harder, you became clearer. There's a difference, and you know it in your body. You wake up now with less urgency to prove, less tension in your chest, less pull toward conversations that drain instead of nourish. You still care, deeply, but you don't chase understanding anymore. And that's not coldness, that's maturity. Somewhere along the way you learned something most people never do. That being calm is more powerful than being right. You've looked at your life honestly, not through fantasy, not through hope alone, but through truth. You've seen where you overgave, where you stayed longer than you should have, where loyalty quietly turned into self-abandonment. And instead of blaming yourself, you chose awareness. That's growth. There's a steadiness in you now, a grounded presence, like a mountain that doesn't move when the weather changes. People can feel it. Even if they don't know how to name it, they notice you're not reacting the same way. You pause before responding. You listen more than you speak. You choose silence when silence protects your energy. And that's when things around you start to shift. Because when you stop feeding chaos, chaos gets nervous. What you're standing in now is self-authority. Not ego, not control, but inner leadership. You trust yourself enough to make decisions without external validation. You trust your timing, your instincts, your sense of what's right for your future. And here's the part most people don't talk about. When you reach this place, you don't feel excited all the time. Sometimes you feel neutral, detached, almost still. That stillness is not emptiness. It's clarity settling in. It's the space where your next chapter forms without pressure. You're no longer building your life around being chosen. You're building it around alignment, around sustainability, around peace that lasts. And that changes the type of energy that can walk beside you. So if tonight you've been feeling calm, but also slightly unfamiliar to yourself, that's not something to fear. That's the sound of your old patterns loosening their grip. Take another breath here, slow, unforced. Because the way you're standing now is already rewriting the dynamics around you. And the people who were used to the old version of you, they can feel it. They may not say it out loud, but they know. And that awareness is already setting something in motion. All right? Stay with me. Don't rush this part. Because there's something subtle happening now. And it's easy to miss if you're not listening with your whole body. You might not have said anything out loud. You didn't make an announcement. You didn't explain your reasons. You simply shifted. And somehow, someone noticed. They felt it in the quiet, in the delay before a reply, in the way your energy no longer reaches for them the way it used to. You didn't disappear. You just stopped leaning. And that's what unsettled them. There is a person tied to your past who can sense that the connection is thinning, not breaking in a dramatic way, just loosening. Like a thread slipping through fingers no matter how tightly they try to hold on. They feel the absence of your effort more than your presence ever before. Because you're no longer filling the space for them. You're no longer smoothing things over. You're no longer translating yourself so they can stay comfortable. And that silence does something to people. It forces them to feel what you've been carrying alone for a long time. You see, this isn't about love suddenly deepening on their side. It's about awareness. They're realizing that access to you was never guaranteed, that your loyalty was a choice, one you made every day, quietly, faithfully. And now that choice is no longer automatic. That's where the unease comes from. They may start reaching out in small ways, testing the water, reminding you of shared memories, speaking softly about the past, as if nostalgia could rebuild a bridge. But beneath that tenderness, there's fear. Fear of losing the version of you that stayed even when it hurt. The version that explained, that waited. That made room. And the truth is, you didn't take anything away from them. You simply returned something to yourself. Your attention, your energy, your emotional labor. That shift is powerful, Capricorn. Even if you're barely talking about it, you might feel a strange mix of emotions here. A quiet compassion for them, alongside a steady resolve within yourself. That's not confusion, that's clarity. With a heart, you're not trying to punish anyone. You're not closing your heart. You're just no longer offering it where it isn't held with care. And the universe responds when you do that. Not loudly, not all at once, but in subtle rearrangements. People show you who they are when they feel you pulling away. Some lean in with honesty. Some reach out from fear. Some reveal how much they relied on your presence without ever protecting your peace. Let yourself notice without judgment. You don't need to confront. You don't need to explain. Your calm is already speaking for you. There's wisdom in the way you're moving now. A quiet authority. Like someone who knows they don't need to raise their voice to be heard. So if tonight you feel that someone is watching from a distance, wondering, sensing the shift, unsure how to reach you the same way, let that be information, not pressure. You are allowed to evolve without dragging your past behind you. Take another slow breath here. Let your shoulders soften, because what's unfolding is not about who's losing control. It's about you stepping fully into your own. Stay with me here. This part asks for patience and honesty, because what you've lived through wasn't loud suffering. It wasn't dramatic enough for others to notice. It was the kind of weight you carried quietly, day after day, without complaint. You're not someone who leaves at the first sign of pain. That's never been you. When things got heavy, you stayed. You adjusted. You told yourself you could handle a little more, just a little longer. You learned how to carry responsibility like a second skin, how to be the steady one, the reliable one, the one people lean on without asking how much it costs you. And for a long time, you didn't even question it. You told yourself, this is what strength looks like. This is what loyalty means. This is what love requires. So you stayed through moments that slowly drained you, through conversations where your needs were postponed, through situations where your effort was expected but rarely returned in the same measure. You became very good at holding things together, too good, because while you were busy keeping the balance, no one noticed that you were running on empty. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from being the strong one all the time, not physical, deeper than that. It settles into your bones, into your chest, into the way you exhale at night when no one is watching. And still, you didn't walk away. You tried to fix what wasn't yours to fix. You softened your edges. You adjusted your expectations. You told yourself, maybe this is just how life works. Until one day, something inside you paused. Not snapped, not broke, paused. And in that quiet moment, you saw the truth without drama or denial. You saw how much you were giving, how consistently, how generously, and you saw how little was coming back. Not because others were cruel, but because they had grown used to your endurance. That realization didn't come with anger, it came with sadness, a slow, heavy understanding. You realized you weren't tired because you were weak. You were tired because you had been strong for too long without support. That's when the decision began to form, not as a sudden exit, not as a dramatic line in the sand, but as a quiet internal shift, a knowing. This can't continue like this. You didn't rush it. You sat with it. You felt the weight of what it meant to choose yourself after choosing others for so long. And that choice didn't feel reckless. It felt earned. You reached the point where self-respect mattered more than being understood, where peace mattered more than keeping things comfortable for everyone else. And that's important to hear. You didn't give up. You didn't quit. You completed a cycle. You stayed long enough to learn everything you needed to learn. You carried enough to know your limits. You loved enough to know the difference between commitment and self-sacrifice. So, if part of you still feels tender here, that makes sense. Endurance leaves marks, even when you heal. Take a breath, slow it down. Because the strength you built in those years wasn't wasted. It refined you. It grounded you. It prepared you to recognize what balance actually feels like. And as you sit in this moment now, with a deeper awareness of your worth, something subtle begins to rearrange itself. Not outside of you, within. a quieter knowing, a steadier pace, a sense that from here on, you don't need to suffer to prove your loyalty. And that understanding is already guiding your next step. Stay close to this moment. There's a reason the air feels different now. Not because everything around you suddenly changed, but because something inside you finally did. When you made the decision to move differently, the universe didn't push back. It didn't test you harder. It didn't ask you to prove anything. It softened. Doors didn't swing open dramatically. They simply stopped being locked. You may not have noticed it at first. It arrived quietly, in small signs, a conversation that felt lighter, a thought that didn't carry fear, a sense of relief you couldn't quite explain. That's how guidance works for you. Subtle, grounded, respectful of your pace. You're not being rushed into anything new. You're being invited into a way of living that doesn't require tension to feel meaningful, invited into choices that don't demand sacrifice just to be valid, invited into a rhythm that honors your energy instead of draining it. This path doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't compete. It doesn't perform. It waits. And somehow, that feels right to you. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not moving from pressure. You're moving from clarity. You're no longer chasing approval. You're no longer bending yourself to fit someone else's expectations. You're not asking to be chosen. You're choosing. And that changes the entire landscape of your life. The opportunities showing up now feel different. They don't come with urgency. They don't come with emotional debt. They come with steadiness. There's a sense of trust in them, a feeling that you can exhale and still move forward. This version of your life isn't about proving your worth. It's about building something that can last. You can feel it in the way decisions land in your body now. Less tightness, more calm, more patience with yourself. You're learning that progress doesn't have to be loud to be real. That growth doesn't need witnesses to be valid. That peace is not boring, it's powerful. You might notice yourself stepping back from environments that thrive on chaos. Not because you're judging them, but because your nervous system no longer wants to live there. You're choosing simplicity, consistency, truth. And here's the part that matters. This path honors who you are becoming, not who you used to be. It doesn't ask you to return to old patterns. It doesn't require you to relive old wounds to earn a place. It meets you where you are, stable, aware, rooted. You're allowed to want a life that feels safe in your chest. You're allowed to want connections that don't keep you guessing. You're allowed to move slowly and still arrive exactly where you're meant to be. There is wisdom in your timing, even when others don't understand it. And you don't need to explain it anymore. As you walk this way now, you'll notice how things begin to align without force. People who respect your boundaries, situations that don't drain your spirit, moments of quiet satisfaction that remind you you're on the right track. Let yourself trust that. You didn't lose anything by choosing this road. You gained space. You gained clarity. You gained yourself. And as you continue forward with this grounded sense of direction, there's a gentle awareness settling in, a knowing that the life unfolding ahead of you isn't asking for struggle as payment. It's asking for presence and honesty and the courage to keep walking exactly the way you are now. Let's slow this down together, just a little. Because what's approaching you now doesn't arrive with noise. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for attention. It waits until you're quiet enough to notice. There's an opportunity moving toward you that feels very different from what you've known before. Not exciting in a restless way, not dramatic, not demanding, grounded, steady, real. You might almost overlook it because it doesn't come wrapped in urgency. It doesn't pressure you to decide immediately. It doesn't trigger fear of loss. Instead, it feels calm in your chest. And that calm is the signal. This isn't the kind of offer that asks you to perform. It doesn't need you to overextend. It doesn't need you to prove your worth. It meets you as you are now, more centered, more aware, less willing to sacrifice yourself just to keep something alive. The energy behind this is subtle but strong. It's the presence of someone or something that doesn't talk much but follows through. Someone who understands timing, someone who respects consistency, someone who thinks in years, not moments. There's a quiet maturity here that mirrors your own, and when you sense it, your body responds before your mind does. Your shoulders relax, your breath deepens, your thoughts slow down. You're not bracing for impact. You're not preparing for disappointment. You're simply open. That's new. For so long, opportunities came with a cost, an emotional toll, a sense that you'd have to carry more to keep them steady. This one doesn't ask that of you. It invites collaboration, balance, mutual respect. It feels like building something where both sides show up without needing reminders. And that's when the thought crosses your mind. Quietly. It doesn't have to be hard. Not love, not work, not connection. You're realizing now that struggle was never the requirement. It was just what you got used to. This opportunity reflects the version of you that has learned how to pace themselves, how to choose sustainability over intensity, how to value peace as a form of success. You may notice how different your reactions are this time. No rushing ahead, no overthinking, no urge to explain yourself. You're letting things unfold naturally. That doesn't mean you're passive. It means you trust the process enough to let it reveal itself. And there's strength in that. Because this offer isn't meant to rescue you. It's meant to walk beside you. It aligns with the future you're building. The life where you feel supported, seen, respected. Not because you asked for it, but because you chose yourself first. If a part of you feels surprised by how easy this feels, that's understandable. Ease can feel unfamiliar when you've lived so long in endurance mode. Let yourself adjust. Let yourself believe that something solid can arrive without chaos. This moment isn't about grabbing onto anything. It's about allowing yourself to receive without guilt, without suspicion, without needing to prepare for disappointment. And as you sit with that feeling, something settles inside you, a quiet assurance that you no longer need to earn stability through exhaustion, that what's coming into your life now respects the boundaries you've learned to hold. And as that understanding takes root, you may sense a gentle awareness forming, not a rush, not a demand, just a knowing. That certain doors open only when you stop forcing the wrong ones to stay. And right now, you're standing exactly where you need to be to recognize the difference. Stay with me a little, longer. There's a quiet truth moving through this moment, and it deserves your full attention. As you become more grounded, more certain in your own center, something else begins to stir. You feel it before you see it. A subtle pull from the past. A familiar energy shifting, growing restless. The steadier you become, the more unsettled they feel. Not because you've done anything wrong, not because you changed overnight, but because your presence no longer bends toward them the way it once did. And that absence speaks louder than words ever could. They start to sense the thread loosening, that invisible line they assumed would always hold, the one they leaned on without ever checking its strength. So they reach, sometimes softly, sometimes suddenly, a message late at night, a memory brought up out of nowhere, a tone that sounds like regret wrapped in familiarity. They may speak about the past as if it were a place you could simply return to, as if time hadn't passed, as if the weight you carried hadn't changed you. And you notice something now that you couldn't see before, the urgency in their voice, the impatience behind the tenderness, the fear hiding beneath the apologies. This isn't about love suddenly awakening, it's about control slipping away. They feel you becoming unavailable in a way they can't fix with words. They feel you choosing yourself without asking for permission. And that terrifies them, because the version of you they knew was dependable, predictable, always there. You were the constant, and now you're not. What's different this time is how clearly you see it. You're no longer caught in the emotion of it. You're observing. You hear the promises, but you listen for consistency. You notice the gestures, but you look for real change. You're asking questions inside yourself that you never allowed before. Is this effort sustainable? Is this growth real? Or is it simply fear dressed up as transformation? These questions don't come from bitterness. They come from wisdom. You've learned that not every return is meant to be accepted. Not every apology comes with accountability. And still, you don't harden. There's compassion in you. A quiet understanding that people often wake up only when something is about to leave. You can hold that truth without surrendering your ground. You're not here to punish anyone. You're here to protect your peace. And that changes the dynamic completely. You no longer feel pulled into proving anything. You don't rush to respond. You don't feel responsible for their discomfort. Your calm is your answer, and it speaks volumes. There's a dignity in the way you're holding yourself now, a patience that doesn't chase, a strength that doesn't need to announce itself. You understand that real change shows up over time, in actions that don't require reminders, in behavior that remains steady even when there's no guarantee. So, you watch, you listen, you feel, and you let clarity guide you instead of history. That doesn't mean the past didn't matter. It means it no longer decides for you. As this energy circles around you, testing the space you've created, you remain centered, breathing, present, aware. You're no longer standing where you once were, and anyone who wants to meet you now has to do so on different ground. Let that settle in your body, because what's unfolding here isn't about closing doors with force. It's about recognizing which ones no longer align with who you've become. And as you hold that awareness, without anger, without urgency, without guilt, something else becomes clear. Not everything that returns is meant to stay. Some things come back only to show you how far you've already moved forward. And in that quiet understanding, you remain steady, unshaken, fully in your own space, exactly where you belong. Let this moment breathe. There's no rush here, no need to arrive anywhere quickly, because what you're choosing now is not another test. It's a release. You've already walked through enough resistance to know the difference between growth and unnecessary struggle. For a long time, you believed effort was proof that if something mattered, it had to hurt a little, or a lot. You told yourself that commitment meant endurance, that love required sacrifice, that loyalty was shown by how much you were willing to tolerate. And that belief shaped so many of your choices. But somewhere along the way, you learned something deeper. You noticed how your body reacted when things were constantly tense, how your mind stayed alert even in moments meant for rest, how peace felt unfamiliar because chaos had become normal. That awareness changed you. You didn't suddenly stop caring. You didn't close your heart. You simply stopped confusing struggle with meaning. Now, your soul is asking for something simpler, not shallow, not easy in a careless way, but honest. You want clarity. You want steadiness. You want conversations that don't leave you guessing where you stand. You want to feel safe in your own nervous system. And that's not too much to ask. There's a quiet strength in choosing peace. It doesn't look dramatic, it doesn't announce itself, but it reshapes everything. You're no longer drawn to intensity that comes with instability. You're no longer impressed by grand gestures that disappear when consistency is required. You're listening differently now, not just to words, but to patterns, to energy, to how something feels over time. And when something feels heavy, you don't push through anymore. You pause. That pause is self-respect. You understand now that real connection doesn't require constant defense. That love doesn't demand you prove your worth over and over again. That partnership isn't a battlefield. You don't need to fight to be chosen. You don't need to exhaust yourself to be valued. And you don't need to stay where your presence is taken for granted. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. It means you listened. You listened to the part of you that was asking for rest, for balance, for something that doesn't feel like survival. And that choice takes courage. It's easier to stay in what's familiar, even when it hurts. It's harder to step away from patterns you've outgrown without resentment. But you did it with grace. You didn't leave out of anger. You didn't walk away to punish anyone. You left because your self-respect finally spoke louder than your fear of disappointing others. And that matters, because when you choose dignity over drama, you teach the world how to treat you. You're setting a new standard now, not just for relationships, but for your life. One that values calm over chaos, consistency over intensity, truth over effort. You're allowed to want a life that feels steady in your hands. That doesn't keep you in a constant state of proving. That lets you breathe. And as you settle into this understanding, there's a softness that comes with it. Not weakness, but relief. Relief that you no longer have to convince yourself that pain is part of the deal. Relief that you don't have to earn peace by suffering first. You've already done enough, so if you notice yourself stepping back from what once pulled you in, honor that. If you feel less willing to engage in conflict, trust that. If you're drawn toward simplicity, toward environments that feel safe and clear, follow that. This isn't you giving up. This is you choosing wisely. And as this choice settles into your bones, you may feel something new rising, a quiet confidence, a sense of direction, a calm readiness, not for another battle, but for something that meets you with the same respect you've learned to give yourself. And in that calm space you're standing in now, there's room for something to grow, something that doesn't ask you to struggle to stay, something that understands why you chose a different way. And you don't need to explain it. You already know you're moving closer to what feels right. Stay right here with me. This is where everything you felt begins to make sense. Not in a dramatic way, not with a big reveal, but with a quiet certainty that settles into your chest and doesn't leave. They don't want you to let go. You already know that. You've felt it in the pauses, in the way their energy still reaches for you, in the moments where the past tries to resurface as if it could pull you back into who you used to be. But here's the truth you've been living into. You're not that person anymore. Not because you became colder, not because you stopped caring, but because you grew. Growth doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like restraint, like choosing not to step back into situations that once felt familiar but no longer feel aligned. You've learned something essential about yourself, that your time is valuable, that your energy is sacred, that your presence is not something to be accessed without care. So now you choose differently. You choose boundaries not as walls, but as clarity. You choose values not because they sound good, but because you've lived long enough to know what matters when things get quiet. You choose a path that supports who you are becoming, instead of pulling you back into old patterns that demanded too much and gave too little. And this choice, it's not loud. It doesn't require you to announce anything. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to convince anyone. Your life already reflects it. You move with more intention now. You speak with more care. You walk away sooner when something feels misaligned. And that doesn't mean you're closed off. It means you're awake. Some people will feel the difference immediately. They'll sense that access to you now comes with responsibility, that your presence is no longer guaranteed just because it once was. Others may try to reach for the old version of you, the one who stayed, the one who explained, the one who held things together at their own expense. But you don't need to return there to prove anything. You've already done enough. What you're choosing now isn't about rejection. It's about self-respect. It's about honoring the work you've done, the lessons you've survived, the clarity you've earned. You're choosing a future that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to maintain connection. And that choice changes everything. Even if they come back, even if they say the right things, even if they offer a different story, you'll listen differently now, with discernment, with patience, with an awareness that wasn't there before. You won't rush. You won't be pulled by guilt. You won't be swayed by nostalgia alone, because you're grounded in who you are today. And that version of you knows the cost of staying too long, knows the value of walking away with grace, knows that peace is not something to be negotiated. You're not afraid of being alone anymore. You're more afraid of betraying yourself. And that's not fear, that's wisdom. So, as you sit here now in this quiet moment, let yourself feel the strength of that choice, the calm in it, the dignity in it, the relief. You didn't lose anything by becoming this version of yourself. You found it. And from here on, every step you take is shaped by intention, not obligation, by alignment, not attachment, by who you are now, not who you once were. And as the night moves forward and this moment settles into you, there's a simple truth holding everything together. You are not going back, not because you're running away, but because you finally know where you're meant to go, and you're walking there with your head clear, your heart steady, and your future intact. Stay with that feeling. It's guiding you exactly where you belong. All right? Before we close this space tonight, let me leave you with this. Everything you've heard here was never meant to push you in any direction. It was meant to remind you that you already know the way. Capricorn, you didn't lose anyone by choosing yourself. You simply stopped abandoning who you were becoming, and that is not a mistake. That is wisdom earned through time. The quiet strength you're standing in now isn't something you need to explain to anyone. It will speak for itself in the choices you make, the peace you protect, and the life you continue to build step by steady step. If this message found you tonight, it's because something inside you was ready to hear it. So, take a moment and check in with yourself. If you feel that calm recognition, that quiet yes in your chest, go ahead and leave a comment below and write, "I trust myself." Let that be your anchor. And if you're part of this Capricorn community, if these messages resonate with your path, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. Because this journey doesn't end here. There are more insights unfolding, more clarity arriving, more moments where you'll recognize yourself in ways you never have before. The next message is already on its way, and when it arrives, you'll meet it as the version of yourself who no longer needs permission to move forward. Until then, take this calm with you, protect it, build from it. And remember, Capricorn, the life you're creating now is rooted in truth. I'll meet you again soon.